Look at that for an ashtray. Fairly sure not many people will remember or recognise what that is. Oh, there we go. That can go back now. I can go back to doing bits of cleaning and making a video. So, 3 things. Can't bend my fingers up. Right, 3 things. 1, hair down. Why is my hair down? Because I've just had to have a shower because I stank of cigarette smoke. I don't smoke. I'll come to that in a second. Second thing. That last bit was filmed using this thing around my neck and the GoPro equivalent of the DJI Action 4, one of my favourite cameras at the moment. This is actually currently being filmed on the DJI Osmo Pocket 3. Anyway, enough of that. Why ashtrays? Oh, also, if you like a t-shirt, Wildlife Trust. Yes, it is -3 outside. As a consequence, I invited someone around to have a chat this afternoon. Long story, because of, well, our lack of, have you stopped following me? Sorry, it's stopped following me. Because of our lack of space in here, I'm inviting more people in for one-to-one chat sessions. Occasionally I'll do it around having a brew day or doing something else. This was just a basic, someone needed a chat, new patient, and they, halfway through getting into talking about what they needed to be talking about, said, "Oh, I just want to nip outside for a cigarette." Well, it's bloody freezing out there, as I've just said, so I got the ashtray and just said, "It's all right, you can smoke in here," which I think they was quite surprised at. And it's something that I will do. I don't smoke. I stopped smoking everything 15 years ago, coming up for 15 years ago. But I didn't want to break their motion, if you like. I didn't want to break the process they were going through talking to me about how they felt. So I said, "Smoke in here." Legally, that's not a problem. It's not a workspace where nobody's working. This is my space. I call the shots. I don't get paid to talk to patients. I do it voluntarily, so legally it's fine, absolutely fine. I defy anybody to challenge me on that. And along with that, I wouldn't suggest that in a group session, or if there's other people here or whatever. When it's just myself and the patient, I think that's fine, no problem. It's cold down here, so I'm now going to hobble up to the office and finish this up there. That's better, it's warmer up here. Yes, what was I going to say about the smoking thing? I wanted to put it into context. I stopped, so I'm going to talk about stopping smoking in a minute, but I stopped smoking 15 odd years ago. Patients who are referred to me or refer themselves to me or come in contact with me in whatever capacity who smoke, one of the first things they will always say is, well, I suppose I ought to stop smoking. My response is, well, why? I can pretty much guarantee that next cigarette won't kill you. How often can you say that? It might have been one that you had 10 years ago, 15, 20 years ago. But the situation you're in now is that you could attempt to stop smoking, but doing that while you're under pressure and experiencing stress and a fair amount of anxiety and emotional turmoil is probably not the best time to attempt to stop smoking. Obviously, this is for my terminally ill patients. The patient I had today probably isn't terminally ill. They've got a seminoma, testicular cancer. They have had a right radical orchidectomy, and what that basically means is a small incision in the groin, and then pluck the bollock out, chop it off, send it off, and analyse it to see, and that's how they knew that they had the seminoma. Now, I went through that process 30 years ago, and I'm still 25 years ago. I can't remember. However long ago it was, and I was a part of a trial for, at the time, called a single agent carboplatin. Carboplatin is a dose of chemotherapy. Single agent means it's just one dose. So I had one dose of carboplatin chemotherapy in the morning, blood test to see how much they could hit me with, in the afternoon, sit in a comfy chair for an hour while they infused me with this radioactive carboplatin. And I've been well ever since. And so what I've said to the person who came today, they've just been told that it is the big C. And I've just been sort of trying to put that into context. And so I told them what happened to me. They are. And understandably, whenever anybody is given that that diagnosis, just the word cancer is sometimes worse than the cancer itself, because it really does hit you between the ears rather than, in this case, between the legs. So, so when they said, "Oh, we'll nip outside for a cigarette," and I just said, "Well, don't. Just have one here." I didn't want to break their train of thought. I didn't want to cut them off in their I was about to say cut them off in their prime. Probably not the best choice of words. They're in their 30s, which I think I was, and they are extremely worried. So I tried to just get them to a point of equilibrium whereby they could perhaps step back for a second and look at this. And as soon as I said you can smoke in here, in the just over an hour, what time is it now? It's 5:20. They left at about 4ish. No, cool. Yeah, whenever, just before I took Marley out. No, it must have been earlier than that because it's quite light. Anyway, it doesn't matter. It's irrelevant. In the time that they was here, just over an hour, there was 9 cigarettes. So it did smell. I've put the air freshener around downstairs. I haven't opened the doors because it's fucking freezing. I haven't opened the windows because they don't open. So just waved the air freshener around and had a shower. And I don't think it smells too cigarette-y down there. And I feel they left feeling an awful lot more at ease than when they arrived. That's pretty much the whole story. So yes, I don't mind if people smoke here if I think it's going to be beneficial for them. Stopping smoking. Now, over the year, I started smoking when I was very young, probably 12, 13. and not proud of that at all. And I smoked for a number of years, and at one point I used to say, I'm cutting down on my smoking, I'm down to 2 lighters a day. I think that was a Bill Hicks joke. And I tried a number of times to give up. And that's a particular term that I'll come back to in a second, give up. I tried all sorts, hypnosis, acupuncture, Zyban, Champix, which were the 2, I think they're probably still the 2 prescribable. And yeah, to an extent they worked, but I ended up going back to smoking. On a couple of occasions there were reasons behind that. The death of my father probably didn't help at the time, but, and here's the thing, what eventually enabled me to stop smoking was I stopped using the term giving up. When we use the term giving up, it symbolises some degree of sacrifice in our life, and therefore kind of makes it a little bit okay if we relapse. And I've looked at this for a number of years now, and somewhere on YouTube there's a little video. I might redo it, the Wheel of Change, based on a model from a couple of people who worked in alcohol field, Pachanska and Declemente, and I look at that every time I think about my own process of stopping smoking. There's 4 parts to that, and relapse is a part of it. And the reason we keep relapse in that model is that we can say to people, okay, you've relapsed, but you haven't failed. We expect it sometimes. You're in a part of the model. But using that term, giving up, for me, did give me license, if you like, to fail. So I don't say giving up. And I even now, if someone says, I want to give up smoking, I'll say exactly what I've just said. Don't use the term giving up. Excuse me, I need to blow my nose. Right, I'm back. And so, if you smoke, I never make any judgments about people who smoke. I just won't. I don't like it that people smoke, but I recognise that for some people, smoking isn't always the problem. Sometimes it can be the answer to getting themselves out of a situation. If you do want to cease smoking, there are a number of avenues available to you now. Help on the NHS, help in other ways. But the thing for me was not looking at it as if I was giving up something I enjoyed. And what really worked it for me was, I used to think having a cigarette, by the way, sometimes I still smoke in my dreams, bizarre. I don't want a cigarette during the day. I've never craved a cigarette, really, in the last 15 odd years. But what I used to think was having a cigarette was really pleasurable. Just a break for a moment, just a break. What was actually happening was my body was going through withdrawal from the nicotine from the last cigarette. The nicotine would last a certain amount of time. As the nicotine dissipated, I was going into withdrawal from nicotine. And having that next cigarette would take away the withdrawal symptoms. And I would confuse that with being pleasurable. It's a little bit like if you stand and bang your head against a wall. When you stop banging your head against a wall, it feels nice. So making that link between it not being pleasurable, it purely is taking away the withdrawal symptoms of the nicotine. That was what did it for me. But here's the thing. I could only stop smoking once I realised it was something that I really wanted to do for me. Other people always, my parents always wanted me to stop smoking. Partners have always wanted me to stop smoking, apart from partners who smoked. But it's only when that little switch clicks in your own head that you will be able to do it. So don't beat yourself up if you try and you fail, because you can always try again. I will do that video about the wheel of change. I modelled it as a revolving door, but you can leave that model at any time in maintenance. You can maintain not smoking. You can apply that model in a number of different environments. And here's the thing that I still say to people when they say, oh, thinking of giving up smoking. Think about the other things which are attached to your smoking. And what first made me aware of this was probably something like 25 years ago. It might have been longer, because it was someone that I used to work with in Brighton. And I left there in 94, 95. So yeah, it could be 30 odd years ago. She went to work in New York, and she actually worked in Manhattan, and rented an apartment, and she would say to me, I'd always watched things like Cheers and Friends and whatever, and how everyone used to meet in Central Perk, the coffee house. And I used to go to a bar every time I finished work, because it was just seen as the thing to do. I used to go to a bar. I used to have a couple of drinks before going back to my empty apartment, cooking a meal, reading a book, having a bath, going to bed. And it was nothing like Cheers. There wasn't that community in the bar until they brought in the smoking ban. And as soon as the smoking ban came in, and people then had to go and stand out on the sidewalk, pavement, then I got to know some of the other people who were in the bar. And then every time I went into the bar, you'd have people that you knew through having to go outside to smoke. And that's the only time I started to develop my kind of social group within that bar. And I thought, yeah. And I remember very clearly when they brought in, when I used to smoke, when they brought in, you weren't allowed to smoke in restaurants. I mean, up until then, I used to smoke at the table in a restaurant. And if you was a non-smoker, oh, hard fucking luck. And it sort of had occurred to me on a few occasions when I was very close to other people at a table. But otherwise, if they was in the table over there or over there, I'd just, because there was an ashtray on the table, I'd sometimes smoke between courses. When that ban came in and we had to go and stand outside, I actually quite enjoyed the standing outside. And even now, if we go to a restaurant with friends, it doesn't happen very often these days because nobody invites me. Sorry. And they go out for a cigarette, I like to go out with them because I enjoy that little social interaction of going outside. So there's a load of things attached to the process of smoking that if you're seriously thinking of stopping smoking, that you might need to address as well. The hardest thing for me was I used to roll my own, disgusting, roll-ups. I used to smoke really strong tobacco as well, drum tobacco. In the final few years of my smoking journey, I used to put a little filter in the end and the filter would come out. It's just horrible. But prior to then, just all of that was going straight down into my lungs. But the bottom line for this is you're not giving anything up. And the more I don't smoke, the more I appreciate not smoking. And this even comes down to smoking other things. I don't like that sensation of burning material. It's like sticking your head over a bonfire and breathing in. It's not nice. So if you're into weed, and these days you can get prescribed cannabis on a private prescription quite legally, get a vaporizer. In fact, I think you have to use a vaporizer. I'm going to do another video on this as well, because for a lot of my patients it's appropriate. But a vaporizer is completely different from smoking. So it's an alternative which provides the same degree of relief. For a lot of people, vaping with nicotine is their way of stopping smoking tobacco, burning tobacco. Or you can get lozenges or little pouches that the Swedish used to use called skull bandits. You need to be a little bit careful with those because they can be associated with mouth cancer. But there are a number of different ways to stop smoking burning material. So yeah, that's why I keep ashtrays here. And again, if cessation of smoking was easy, probably nobody would smoke. You're up against one of the most, and I don't use the term addiction lightly because it's a value-laden term, but it's one of the most addictive drugs on the planet. Nicotine is very, nicotine, it's because you can still go out and just buy it over the counter. It's terribly difficult to stop using. And I did miss the constructing of something that I was going to consume. When we sometimes forget about that. As humans, we bake a cake, we eat the cake. A part of the baking it is a part of the enjoyment when we come to eat it. And the same was with smoking. I would create a cigarette that I was going to enjoy. So, the video's gone on long enough. I'll never make any judgments about people who smoke. I just won't. I've got no right to. I prefer it if people didn't smoke, mainly because be less patients to work with. Even now, a huge number of the patients that I work with are smokers, and knowing that is avoidable, it is difficult sometimes, but I will never say to someone, I think you should stop smoking. If somebody asks me what I think, well, if you've been given a cancer diagnosis, do you really want that extra grief? If you haven't been given a cancer diagnosis, maybe you could avoid one by switching to a vaporizer or switching to nicotine gum, patches, or stopping altogether. Maybe you can avoid it. Final thought, cigarettes are the only product, when used as intended, will probably kill you in the long run. They will certainly attenuate your life. So, I don't know. It's better not to smoke, but then it's also probably better not to live in poverty or not to be in an abusive relationship or, yeah, I know, I get it. I don't need to be told. Anyway, that's enough for now. Rattled on for a little bit. I need to go and brush my hair and tie it back. This is what my hair really looks like. I do wear it down sometimes. Yeah. I hope that's been useful for some people. And if you've made it this far, well done. Till next time, whatever you're doing, do it safely. Take care of yourself and those you care about. Cheers.